Good evening, and thanks for joining tonight's TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments, where tonight we're going to take a fresh look at flipping in the classroom. My name is Mike Houston, and I'm the moderator for this event. I teach algebra and calculus here at Pittsburgh, where I use TI Technology to make tough-to-teach, tough-to-learn concepts accessible to all my students. Tonight we're really lucky to be joined by our two panelists, Audrey Cucci and Joanne Miltenberg. Audrey is a TCUBE National Instructor and Mathematics Educator for a public school in New York. She has taught a wide range of courses from 8th grade to AP Calculus AB. In 2010, Audrey was recognized by the National School Board Association as a 20 to Watch educator for her work with educational technology, namely the use of TI Nspire and TI Nspire Navigator in her courses. She was also named a master teacher for New York State as the K-12 curriculum coordinator for her district. Audrey, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And Joanne has taught for over 35 years, the last 25 at Farmingdale High School. She teaches college calculus through the Long Island University High School Scholars Program and teaches summer institutes through Molloy College's Continuing Education Program. As a TCUBE National Instructor, Joanne has led professional development workshops, conference presentations, and in-service training locally, statewide, and nationally. As a result of integrating technology into her classroom, she was a New York State recipient of the United States Department of Education American Star in Teaching. Joanne, so great to have you with us tonight.
I'm happy to be here.
We're expecting a large crowd, so your audio is muted. Feel free to send any questions to Audrey or Joanne using the Q&A window on the right side of your screen. We'll also be using the chat window to send general messages. As a reminder, the session is being recorded, and we'll provide a link to the event certificate of attendance, as well as a link to the documents at the conclusion of the webinar. We hope you don't have any audio issues tonight, but in the event that you do, try selecting Communicate from the very top of the WebEx menu and choose Audio Broadcast. At this point, Audrey is going to discuss our agenda.
All right, so today what we're going to be talking about is the flipped classroom model. We're going to do some how-tos and talk about a whole bunch of free online resources. We will see a whole bunch of different platforms, so there's going to be a lot to take in this evening. We're also going to talk about a technology that motivates students to succeed. The TI Nspire CX Navigator is going to be a huge part of that. It's something that I use in my classroom every single day. And we're going to make sure to hit on how we use data collection to really make that flipped classroom complete. And Joanne's going to handle that portion of it.
Our expected outcomes are to show how to create the flipped classroom, demonstrate how to integrate interactive activities, and highlight resources to help provide students with real-world relevant topics.
Thanks so much, Joanne. Audrey, it's all yours. Feel free to share your screen.
Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the flipped classroom this evening. And I just want to start off by some basic introduction materials on what that flipped classroom actually is. There's a whole bunch of different ways to use the flipped classroom. The way I do it in my own classroom is my students do watch a lecture video in the form of a short video prior to the class, so the night before. I try and keep these videos relatively short. I don't like to do any more than 20 minutes for my calculus kids. And remember, that's calculus. Those are your upper levels. And no more than 10 minutes for an algebra classroom. These videos I do make myself. However, keep in mind that the flipped classroom model doesn't necessarily mean you have to make all these videos. There's so many other resources that are out there for us to use, which we're going to talk about. Class time is then used to erase misconceptions, practice problems, do hands-on activities and group work. The structure of your classroom when you're in your class is going to change. My students sit in groups every day, tables of 4, because there's going to be so much talking and so much communication that you're really going to have to think and rework how you set up the classroom. So your typical lesson presentation flipped upside down. The lecture is at night, the homework kind of is during the day. So why do I flip? Well, I started looking into this because I was running into a couple of problems. Number one, my kids were not doing homework. And the kids that were doing the homework were finding that they were doing it or attempting it and doing it wrong over and over and over again, and really solidifying how to do it wrong. So I wanted to get rid of that hurdle. So the idea was I wanted more student contact, more one-on-one time with my kids. And the flipped classroom model has allowed me to do that. Why else? Well, it increases student motivation. Now, is every single kid going to love it? Well, no. But I would have to say that a good 95% of my students really do enjoy the flipped classroom model. One of the biggest pieces that they really like about it is they say, hey, Mrs. Cucci, I can pause you, and I can rewind you, and I can rewatch you. So where in a typical classroom, they can't always stop you with what you're doing because then you would be stopping all of the time. When they're watching your lecture video at home, they can literally stop, think about what they're hearing, and take the time to process it, or rewind it and rewatch it if they just need to hear it again. Self-pacing. So when we talk about what the students are doing in the classroom, if you were to step foot in my classroom during a typical day, each group of students would be doing something different. They're never on the same thing at the same time because they're pacing themselves. It also affords them the opportunity to take on some educational responsibility, and I think that all of us who are teachers know that this is a big part of what we do, trying to get our students to accept some of this educational responsibility, and this really does allow for that. Okay, so how do we flip? So that's the next part we're getting into, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth in just a minute. So you can definitely use videos. These videos, oftentimes, and I will show you in a minute, we can embed questions within the videos. We can ask questions after the video, and we want to make sure that we're always checking for understanding the following day, and we'll talk about that as well. Okay, we're going to talk about different platforms. So where do we put these videos? One of my favorites is Edpuzzle. We're going to take a peek at that. And then how do I make these recordings? Now keep in mind, not all classrooms are the same, so celebrate the differences. Every classroom is going to look different. All right, so just real quick, the ups and downs, because I'm not going to sit here and say that it goes perfect all of the time, because it doesn't. What has gone wrong? Well, what I've learned through this procedure is students really don't know how to take notes. It's a struggle. So what I have done in my own classroom is with my younger students, my Algebra 2, they do guided notes. My pre-calculus, I take away a little bit of the guided notes, responsible for more of the note taking on their own. And then calculus, this is a college class, you're on your own taking your notes. So it really allows them to grow in their note-taking skills as they move up through grade levels. What has gone wrong? Administrative or community resistance, parents. There's always going to be, a little bit of pushback to something new, and that's okay. You just have to make sure that you're in constant communication, and parents and the administration know what it is and why it is that you're doing this. Okay, so students love not having homework and being bored in class. They won't be bored. There's so much to do during that class time that they really get the most use out of the time that they're there. So what has gone right? Well, it's informal assessment, and you get so much more one-on-one time. You can really see where every single kid in your classroom is, what they know, what they don't know, what they're grasping, what they need more time on. And it really allows for you to individualize that instruction for those groups of kids specifically. If there's any questions at all, feel free to pop in, Joanne. I know I'm talking fast. I tend to do that.
That's okay. I'm reading the comments as they go in.
Okay. Common misconceptions. There are always going to be a couple of those floating out there. One of the big misconceptions is students are expected to teach themselves. Absolutely not. The kids are not teaching themselves. They're doing the same thing they were doing in a traditional classroom, except they're afforded more of an opportunity to get one-on-one help from the teacher. So the teacher really is just no longer the sage on the stage. You're really out there running around helping kids, getting your hands dirty instead of standing up in front of that classroom. Misconception is that it only works for some subjects. Works for all of them. You can do this with any subject out there. And you don't have to record your own lectures. This is a big one. There are a lot of different places to go out and not reinvent the wheel. I will tell you, 95% of the videos I use are my own, but sometimes there's topics that maybe I feel like somebody else might explain better than me, or maybe I teach it once, and then in class when we're practicing, I notice that my kids are just not getting it, and I know that I need to reteach. I will go out and find another video that somebody else has done, a different way of explaining it, and I'll have the kids view that video so that they get another view of how something can be done. It's not about me, it's about what best suits my students' needs.
Audrey, I have a question. What percent of the students actually do what they're assigned to at home?
That's a great question. I would say that on any given day, if I have 130 students, I will have 2 that don't watch the video, maybe. Most days I have 100%. It's just easier for them. If we keep in mind, the students, or my students, I guess I can't speak for all of the students in the nation, but what is the one thing they always have in their hand? Well, they've got a cell phone, right? So it's very simple for a kid to press play, watch a video, and take some notes because they all have those devices that they're connected to. Not all of them, and we'll talk about what happens if they don't have a device as well. So really, I would have many more students watching the video for homework than I would have doing a paper homework assignment. Okay. All right, let's see here. Where else do I need to be here? Okay. All right, so what we should be focusing on when we do these flipped classrooms. You want to make sure you make your videos relevant and engaging. One of the things that comes up, and there's a lot of talk about when we talk about flipping our classroom, is the idea of editing our videos. Now, there are a couple of us in my school that flip our classrooms. Actually, all 3 of the high school math teachers in my school flip the classroom. One of them prefers to edit his videos. I prefer not to. So the reason I don't edit my videos is because I like the kids to see that I make mistakes. I like them to get an idea of my personality, of how I teach, of how I might struggle through a problem, because I feel like that struggle is just as important to learn from as me doing the question completely correct and having it in perfect form. So I do not edit my videos. So that is one thing that I may do different than some other flipped models. Use class time for collaboration, discovery, and learning. Don't just hand out a worksheet. It's not going to be useful as if you have them sit in groups and have them work through an activity together. You want your class to be noisy. You want to walk around and hear students talking about mathematics. And you would be surprised, because the first time I did this, I was really concerned that I was going to walk around and I was going to hear my students talking about where's the latest party this weekend, what's happening on Snapchat. But I really was able to hear deep conversations about the mathematics, and it was stunning to hear. Encourage that talking. Allow the kids to struggle. They've got very used to raising their hand and saying, "This could be, I don't get it," and wanting me to explain it to them. So I had to step back and say, well, what did your neighbor say? Have you talked about it? What do you think you're doing wrong? Where could you go from here? How could you approach it differently? Allow them to struggle through the work, because when they grasp it and they make it their own learning, they're going to retain that. Okay, form an accountability system for watching videos. You have to make sure they're actually watching it, and I will show you on the platform exactly how you can do that. I think that's good for that.
Okay, 2 quick questions.
Yep.
Pete wanted to know about the number of questions you ask in class, and we have, I think it's Murray, what happens to your students if they miss the required videos prior to your class?
Okay, so the number of questions that I ask in class really varies on the topic. So if we're doing something like, today we were doing in calculus differentiating inverse trig functions. Well, probably did 4 problems in a 40-minute period because we really wanted to make sure that we understood the structure of the differentiation. So, we minimized the number of questions, but we really fully understood how to work with it. But if it was a very basic concept, maybe we do a few more. What was the second question? I forgot already. Short-term memory.
What if they miss the video prior to class?
Okay. Yeah, so this does happen occasionally. If they miss the video at the night before, I do give them I call it a quick quiz. So it's a 1-question multiple choice quiz at the beginning of the class, and I do that using my TI Inspire Navigator system. They are not allowed to get credit for that 1-question quiz for the day. So they lose 2 points, the 2 points that they get every day if they do their video when they're supposed to. I also check notes. So that's another thing. So teenagers can be sneaky, as we know. So I did run into an issue where some of my students were pressing play and walking away, and their notes weren't taken. So I do also go around, and while they're taking that 1-question quiz, I check their notes. And I do this for the first couple of weeks, and then I start to spot check. So they don't expect it every day, and it does keep them on their toes. So, these are teenagers we're talking about, so you're going to have to account for some of these things, but they learn pretty quick what's expected of them and why it's important that they do it. Are we okay, Joanne?
Yeah, looks like we're good, and people are answering each other's questions, so that's cool.
That's fantastic. Okay.
Hey, Audrey.
Yeah.
We did have another question from Jeffrey. He was wondering how much prep time is needed from you.
Yeah, okay. So, and Joanne can attest to this. So, when you make your first video, it's going to be awful. And it will take you a good 40 minutes, and you will trash it, and you will try it again. So in the beginning, it takes a while. Once you get good at it, I can make a video in a 15-minute video in 22 minutes flat. So it's really, and that's with, saving it and uploading it to my platform. So 22 minutes from start to end to me is worth every second of instructional time that I get with my kids. So again, it takes a little practice, and it's going to be super awkward because it's very strange to sit there and talk to yourself and not get any feedback like I'm doing right now. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, good. All right. So let's talk about the how. I personally use Smart Notebook. So I'm going to go straight to Smart Notebook. This is Smart Notebook. I'm all about free things. I love free, okay? So Smart Notebook, if you have a smart board or if you have a Smart Notebook product key, allows you to video for free. And all you're doing is, if you notice right here, there's a little Smart Recorder icon. All I have to do is click that and then press the start, okay? And what that does is it records my voice, and it records whatever's happening on the screen, whether or not I have my calculator software open or I have something up in Smart Notebook. It's going to record whatever I'm doing on the screen itself. I use a Lenovo ThinkPad that has a built-in stylus. It has worked really well for me for annotating. I find that it writes beautifully, so that's personally what I use. I like Smart Notebook because it's easy to use, but keep in mind you cannot edit a Smart Notebook. It's not an editing software like Camtasia is. A lot of people like Camtasia that allows you to, snip parts of the video out and crop it and adjust it for your needs. I personally do not do that. So Smart Notebook is the way I go. After I make my video, what I then do is I pop over to Edpuzzle. Okay. So now Edpuzzle is really fantastic. So I don't know why this isn't minimizing. There we go. Okay. So Edpuzzle allows me to go in and upload all of my videos into my content space. So if you notice, I have a whole bunch of folders in here. These are each of my classes. Some of them are my old classes. And it allows me to stick the video into the correct folder for the lesson. Now I'm going to show you a real quick video, and I'm going to fast forward. We are not going to listen to me talk for 3 minutes and 18 seconds. But I wanted to show you that, you know, you can embed questions within this. So really quick, I'm going to fast forward so we're close to the question.
Okay, Audrey, what do you mean by don't use class time for paper and pencil? Justin would like to know.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so if you notice this question popped up right here, this is what the students would see, and they would have to answer this question prior to moving on. You can't move on without answering it first, okay? So it forces them to pay attention to what's going on with the video, so they can't just ignore it, okay? We're not going to listen to me talk. What do I mean by not using paper and pencil in class? I mean, don't just give them a worksheet with question after question after question that they have to spit out answers to. Make it something more meaningful. Make it more application-based. Okay? Yes, so somebody just commented, Edpuzzle will boot your videos, post them right onto Google Classroom for you. So if you're a Google Classroom user, this works beautifully together. Okay? So that question that popped up, the students had to answer. Now, if we go through, I just want to show you what that looks like when a student perhaps doesn't watch the video. Let me go into Algebra 2. Now, okay, so these are all my problems here. So if I go into just kidding, my classes. Here's my Algebra 2 assignment. Okay. So if I take a peek at, let's say, 4.3 summation notation, right? So here are all of my students, and I can see, okay, who didn't watch it. So she's in trouble, Bryce started it and didn't finish it, right? So I can see very clearly who watched it and who did not right away. There are no questions in this, or there was one question that I still need to go through and grade, but it allows me to see exactly what the questions were and what the correct answers were, okay? So the platform is very simple to use. Overall. I need to take just a moment to breathe. Give me 2 seconds. Joanna, are there any questions?
No, it looks like we're good. Mike, unless you see any.
I don't see any right this second. Okay.
So 5.3, I just wanted to show you, I wanted to go back and use 6.3. Okay. So as you notice, I have a lot of videos, a whole lot. Oh, this is not what I wanted. Okay. All right, so that is a quick peek at Edpuzzle. Just so you know, they do allow for 21 free videos in storage. It used to be that it was all completely free, but now they do have a small price to store all of the videos. I lucked out and got in a few years ago, so I got a little lucky there. Okay, so after my kids watch the video, they come into class, and like I said, the first thing they do is they take a 1-question quiz, okay? So I go ahead and I send them a quiz using my Navigator system, and as you see up on my screen right now, you see a whole bunch of little green people and a couple of red people, right? So this shows that I sent them Quick Quiz 7.4. It's highlighted over in my class record. And all of my students in green received it, and my students in red did not. More than likely, those students were absent that day, okay? So this is really nice because what it does is it allows me to, immediately see who's there, do my attendance very quickly, and then when they're done with the question, I can collect it back for them, and I can immediately view the results. Now, typically speaking, I would not have this little box right here that says show correct answer. I would not have that checked. I would have both of these grayed out. And the reason for that is I would want to have a conversation here. Why is 10 negative 1 the correct answer? Or why is 10 the correct answer? Why do they differ? What did one group do that another group didn't? This is a big spot where we can do a lot of learning. We have to learn from our mistakes. And notice we don't see any student names. Nobody's getting called out for getting it wrong. We're really spending the time understanding the difference between the answers and how we went about making sure that we were correct or incorrect. Yeah, this is TI Navigator. TI Navigator really changed the way I teach. This is something that I will never go back to not having ever, ever, ever. I will forever have an Inspire Navigator system in my classroom. It allows for instant data analysis. I can see what every student is doing at every moment by using Live Presenter, which Joanne's going to show you in a little while. It really has changed how I present information.
Audrey, what if a student doesn't have internet access?
Yeah, so if a student doesn't have internet access, there's a few things that I've done in the past. The first thing I have done is thumb drive. So I will take just a thumb drive and I will save all of the videos for the unit on a thumb drive, and the student can take the thumb drive home with them. We are very fortunate in that we are a one-to-one school, so each of our students has Chromebooks. So everybody has access to a device. Whether or not they have internet on it doesn't make a difference if you have the ability to hand them over a thumb drive. We also have a local library. We have libraries, computers in the library at school that can be used during study hall. So where there is a will, there is a way.
Do you have block scheduling?
No, I'm 43-minute periods.
Okay.
Yep. TI Navigator, somebody popped up. So TI Navigator is a computer software that works with, I'm going to get yelled at, the little yellow hats. So network managers, they slide onto the top of your Inspire, and they make it so that your calculator basically interacts wirelessly with software on your computer. No, it is not free. It would be nice if it was, but no, it is not. Okay. How are we doing so far? So it looks like I've got maybe 1 or 2 more minutes. So what do we do in class? So I just want to show you 2 more things, and they are going to be quick because I do have to pass this over to Joanne. I'm not going to steal all of the time. So besides using Navigator and using Live Presenter in the classroom, I do like to use 2 different platforms, which make it fun. The first one I wanted to talk to you about is Quizzes. So, or maybe I'm saying that wrong. I could be saying it completely wrong. I'm going to say Quizzes. Quizzes. I don't know, we're going to roll with it. So this is an awesome site. And the reason it's so awesome is because the kids don't need me to use it. When my students say, Mrs. Cucci, can I have more practice on, and believe it or not, they actually do say that, they can go right to this site and they can search any topic, and it'll populate a whole bunch of different quiz activities for them to try. And with every activity or every question, they get instant feedback on whether or not they're getting it right or wrong, and then they can review what they've done at the end. Now, this is without having to log in, without having to have an account. This is completely free, and they can use it on their own. Now, I really like it because I can go through and make my own. And what I'll do is I'll pair my kids up, or I'll have them work in groups of 2, 3, or 4, and I'll give them one of these quizzes that they can work through as a team or a group. This is really nice because it does give me instant feedback once they're done with the assignment and how they did. Now, obviously, reducing radicals for some strange reason is a struggle for kids. So I have 67% accuracy. I can go in here and see how every kid did, what they're missing. I can email it to the parents. So there's a lot of feedback that can be given here. So Quizzes is an awesome way. If you teach like an RTI or academic intervention class, this is a great way to individualize activities for each kid in the classroom just by searching a topic that they need to work on. It's fantastic. The other one I like to use is Kahoot. Now, Kahoot is used for a whole class activity. So you're not going to do it kid by kid. It's going to be the entire class is going to review together. You can search for pre-made ones. You can make your own. And you search it, and you have to have a presenter. And then the kids can use their cell phones or a Chromebook, and they just tap the correct answer, and it becomes a game. And this is something that I like to do on review days, maybe before a test, to kind of lighten up the mood. It's really great the day before a vacation. That's a good day to use it because when they get a little squirrely, this is a nice way for them to kind of blow off some steam while actually still doing the mathematics. So those are two platforms that I like to use in the classroom that keep it fun, keep it light when we're not doing, kind of a deeper kind of struggle through type of problem. So this is one of those fun things I like to use. Okay, I'm done. I'm at 8:31. I'm sorry, I used a little bit more than my time.
Just a little. That's okay.
I'm sorry. All right, I'm going over to Joanne, so I'm going to stop sharing. I tried so hard, Joanne.
No problem.
Okay, so I'm going to pass you the ball. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Okay, and you should have it in just a moment. Thank you for patience with me and my fast talking.
No problem. Okay, so I know there was some questions about, there was a final question about, do you change what you do in class when it's observation time? And I was going to answer that question by showing one of the things we do during observation time, which is the Navigator system. So the flipped classroom frees up more time for fun interactive activities, and I don't think there's anything more interactive than data collection combined with the TI Inspire Navigator. So I'm going to present the lab. I know somebody mentioned it already, while highlighting some more of the Navigator's interactive features. If you're looking for ideas to get started with data collection, the best place is the education.ti.com website. When you choose activities and all activities, you can find all of your lab options for the TI-84 and the TI Inspire for math, science, and STEM, and lessons including the CBR2 from modeling functions from linear to sinusoidal, parametric plots, the pressure probe for inverse functions, and so much more. I'm going to go to Science Inspired and Forensics, Case Files for Classroom Activities. So the main page gives you a brief description of the lab and the first page of the TNS file. For a more detailed description, you choose the file that you're interested in, and here you'll find the description including lesson objectives, the data collection probe needed for the lesson, the student activity document to modify to your class needs, the student activity PDF document, teacher notes including modifications and sample data, the complete TI Inspire activity TNS. You can also check your standards alignment for assessment standards, state standards, Common Core standards, as well as textbook alignment. I'm going to do a modified version of hot air, cold body from my math class. So students will apply their knowledge of an exponential function to a contextual situation, represent the situation graphically, and solve the exponential model using logarithms. I do use this in my class in lieu of the traditional lesson on solving the exponential, using Newton's law of cooling formula as the model. The student is still the medical examiner who's called to the crime scene, and the investigators are trying to determine the time of death so they can narrow down the number of suspects. As Audrey mentioned, excuse me, I've set up a small demo class in the Navigator with previously collected data. I've started the class, which would happen up here where it now says End Class. I've logged in the students, which is why they're all blue. And I like to group my students with their lab partners, so I moved the icons can be moved wherever you want to. But this makes it easier for me to transfer files later on. Students get a hard copy of the lab as well as a handheld version. And the data collection page is set up for them using the Teacher Edition software, choosing a new document, and add Veneer Data Quest. You can change the settings by going to Menu, Experiment, and 8 for collection setup. Or you can mouse to the gear, choose between interval or rate. Yep, didn't do that right. And the duration in terms of seconds. And OK. If a temperature probe is attached to your computer or your calculator, it'll open up on the meter view. So we have meter view, graph view, and spreadsheet. In meter view, you can switch and choose either Celsius, Fahrenheit, or Kelvin. And hot air, cold body is done using Celsius, and my modified version is done in Fahrenheit. With the temperature probe connected, you can tab or mouse to the play button and collect data directly to your computer as you would to your handheld. The document is sent to the class by choosing the Send to Class icon and selecting Finish. I'm going to stop this. As soon as they've read through the lab, they're ready to start. And a nice addition to any data collection lab after the read-through is to have the groups discuss and predict the results. They can do this right on the data collection page. So if you were to go to Menu and Analyze, down at number 9, we have Draw Prediction, and Draw. So they can actually, even though it's a dot to dot, give you an idea of what they think the data is going to look like. In the flipped classroom, students watch a short video similar to the one that I'm going to show you. And the reason why Audrey and I were laughing is because this took me 35 takes because of the dog barking, the grandfather clock gonging, and my husband saying, "Are you done yet?" And even now, I'll do a voiceover because the volume isn't working. So I would flip.
It does get easier.
A flipped classroom failure. Okay.
Yeah, but you tried so hard, Joanne.
Oops. I know. All right. So students are given a container with polyacrylate and a beaker of water below body temperature. The water is added to the crystals, and the student stirs until the crystals become a gel. When the gel looks like this, see that? The lid goes on the container, and we've created our victim's liver. The temperature probe goes into the top of the container, being sure not to touch the edges. Once the temperature levels off, data collection begins. That can be done by mousing to the play button or tabbing and entering. Our data collection continues for 10 minutes. So you can see on this screen when Audrey was referring to the yellow hats that those are the network connectors, and these calculators were connected to my Navigator system. So I can see what everybody is doing. Okay, so the temperature of the water determines the temperature of the liver, so it's very easy to regulate below body temperature and set up for multiple classes because you just need warm water. Hot air, cold body uses baked potatoes for the liver. As students perform the experiment, collect their data, and make calculations, I use Navigator's screen capture feature to observe while I circulate and help. So using the camera icon and capture class, I choose logged in only, and what that does is avoid not logged in screens. But either way, after the students log in, the next time screen capture refreshes, the screen will change. And you can choose the refresh time from the pull down. My first step immediately following data collection is to have the lab member whose calculator was used to collect the data send me his or her file. So now instead of my computer, I'll be using Ben's handheld, here's Ben, and the live presenter feature on the Navigator system, which allows the student to lead the class. So I select Ben and make presenter.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so live presenter is definitely a must in that flipped classroom model, because what I wind up doing is I take the worst kid in the class and I use them live presenter, because they love it so much that they really want to do it, and it keeps them on task. And you don't have to show the student name, so nobody needs to know that Ben the bad kid is leading the classroom, but he knows it and he loves it. So live presenter, definitely awesome tool that TI created. Very, very useful in this method of teaching.
Okay, so basically what Audrey is saying is the student becomes the teacher, and the keys that are pressed on the handheld turn red on the live presenter screen. So I will try to remember to use the numbers instead of mousing down to everything. So Ben goes to the Documents key. You can see that's red. 1 to File. And before I choose 6 for Send, I need everybody to be watching the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, like right in here. So I'm going to choose 6 for Send. And you can see Ben sent me Newton's TNS file, and it's in my unprompted folder. So I will go to my unprompted folder, which is in the Class tab. Open it, and here's Ben's file. I select it, and I can view, I can export, I can remove, I can save to portfolio, or close. Audrey mentioned portfolio is where our students, all of our records are housed. So this is one that was actually a graded assignment. I can open it in review space, and you can see it was actually a Regents exam, and the questions and the answers, and I always use it for Regents prep and for, polling, quizzing, everything. As Audrey said, I never taught a day without it. So going back to now my documents, because I chose to view it. So this is now Ben's file. I go to the class where I set up his lab partners, and I highlight his lab partners. And back to the Send to class. And you can see that only his lab partners now are highlighted. I click Finish. So as all the files get sent to me, I send them back out. It really is done very quickly as by grouping the students earlier. So now all 3 students have the file and are responsible for all of the work, both the TNS file and the hard copy, and for checking each other's work. So between screen capture and this, it makes it much more difficult for one person in a group to do all of the work. And if I go to screen capture, you can see that, where are they? Here we are. Nora over here has received the transfer, and Ashley has received the transfer. So now I'll switch to Jocelyn as my live presenter. And Jocelyn's going to fill in the crime scene evidence report to complete our lab. The students were given directions. To make note of the room temperature or ambient temperature before the lab began, and that was 69.9. The initial temperature is the maximum, and the final temperature is the minimum. So Jocelyn's handheld is going to use Analyze Statistics on the data collection page. So using Menu, 4 for Analyze, and 5 for Statistics. So we now have our maximum and our minimum temps. She says OK, and can revisit the stats anytime by clicking on the stats and mousing down. So now we need the time at which both temperatures occurred, and there are 2 very easy ways to do that. The first is Menu, Send to, List in Spreadsheet. So we scroll to the max if necessary, and then to the min. By scrolling down the temperature column, the student can attend to precision by using the entire stored value in calculations shown at the bottom of the page. And in this case, the max was the same, but I passed it. But the min was carried out 6 additional place values. So 0 was the max time, and 600 was the min time, as it should be if the student followed directions and waited for the temperature to stabilize before starting. If you look at Ben's file, even before Menu, Analyze, Statistics, I'll click View on Graph this time, we can clearly see that Ben did not listen to directions. And so rather than having to redo an entire lab data collection, he can scroll the list in spreadsheet, find his max and min times, and his duration would be 465. So it's one of the things I like best about this lab is that no 2 groups will have the same data to complete their work. So it makes for a much richer discussion in the end. At any time during class, I can pause. If there's something I'd like to interject, or sometimes a student has a question that you want everyone to hear, when you pause, go back to screen capture, and when it refreshes, you can see that the students will see teacher has paused the class. Screen capture prevents them from using their handhelds. So what the teacher usually sees is the entire class looking up dazed because they can't use their handhelds.
It's my favorite.
I know. It's like a deer in the headlights, seriously. They're just like, what? So I go back and I resume class, and then Jocelyn can lead us again. So going back to Jocelyn as my live presenter, where is she in the zoomed in screen? Jocelyn, there you are. Okay, so going back to Jocelyn as my live presenter, I can set up, so the second way. I want to go through the second way first, sorry. I'm going to go back to the data collection page and back to Menu and Send to. And this time, instead of list and spreadsheet, I'll do a 2 for data and statistics. So in data and statistics, we mouse to the point and hover, and you'll see your coordinates pop up. So I encourage students to try both, list and spreadsheet for precision and calculations, and data and statistics as a subtle reminder to graph data as points and not connected, because of how many times I get lines drawn, like jiggly lines. So I can set up the original document to disconnect the data points, but I prefer leaving that to the student. So as an alternative, we can go back to our data and statistics page, and the student can do the same thing that I would do. So let me escape and go back. And that would be to go to Menu, to 6 for Options, 1 for Point Options, mouse over to Connect Data Points, and tab to OK. So the next step we have is to insert a calculator page. Type in max, my var key, and run temperature, and min, and my var key, and run temperature. And now we have the full values that can be used in their calculations, so that the stored value in the calculator can be used. Let me see if I can get this up there. Can be used in future calculations, so there's no rounding. So the student completes the table. They calculate the value for K using their logarithms. They take the value that they solved for, the cooling constant, and using body temperature, your ambient temperature, the temperature when you arrived on the crime scene, and here's K. They will solve for the time or the amount of time that the victim was dead. Depending on their findings, they convert their seconds to minutes. The boxes over here, TNS file scoring, that's 3 pages from hot air, cold body, and it would do the solutions for you. So we have our duration of the model data, initial temperature, ambient temperature, final temperature. The adjacent page is a notes page with a math box. The math box allows you to do calculations. We hit enter. We have the rounded version. We insert a calculator page and use K, which is the constant, and we can arrow up and get the full value. The next page is the next page of the written document also, which is our body temperature, ambient temperature, and the temperature when we arrived on the crime scene. We go to our notes page, enter on the math box, insert a calculator page, T for time, our full value being stored. The third page converts our seconds to minutes. T divided by 60. And we get our final answer. So in some classes, I use the file to score my students' labs. In classes that have more time for investigation, I send the file to the students and they can self-check and troubleshoot. Before I end the class, I go back to where I sent my Newton's file and I right-click. Sent the Newton's file. I right-click and collect selected from class. The following day, I do a quick poll for some basic understanding and some questions to provoke more in-depth discussion. Now, I know, Mike, I'm going to just take another quick minute because sometimes we find ourselves explaining the handheld more than our lesson. So in keeping with the flipped classroom, You can send your students the link to handheld tutorials by going to your back to your TI website, to professional development for teachers and teams, because some teachers like to watch the videos themselves. Free online learning and pass-through webinars, etc. That's where we are. To product tutorials. We are using the TI Inspire.
I think you're frozen.
Am I?
Looks that way.
What am I frozen on? What am I frozen on?
Free online learning.
Okay, let me see if I can go back. Where am I now?
Yeah, you're still there.
Still frozen?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
wait, no,
okay.
You're there. Nope, it moved ahead. You're good.
What did it move ahead to?
So you're at professional development.
Okay, professional development, free online learning.
Yep.
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 Product tutorials.
Yep.
TI Inspire.
Perfect.
Okay, so we have TI Inspire tutorials and Who Knew It Learning. And, come on, we have basics about the Inspire. We have videos on graphs and geometry, list and spreadsheet, data and statistics, the calculator, and for us, data collection, analyzing data using Veneer DataQuest. So I think 5 minutes is about the longest video that's in here.
Yeah,
and
I think so.
I mean, certainly worthwhile. If you're doing data collection and they can watch the video that I showed you and then watch the part where they're analyzing data, it'll give them a feel for the whole experiment before they even come into the classroom. So, Mike, I am going to, let's see, get rid of this and this and this and bring you up. Where are you? That.
So it's up at the top.
And
yeah,
I'm going to stop sharing, but I didn't pass the ball, and I don't. There we are.
I got it.
You do that after.
I got it.
You got it?
Yep. Thanks so
Okay.
much. As we begin wrapping things up.
We crammed it all in.
Whoa. At least they can watch the video.
That's right.
That's right. As we
Rewind.
begin wrapping things up, if you do have any last-minute questions for Audrey or Joanne, please try to get those asked. I know they'll do their best to get those questions answered. We're looking forward to the T-Cubed International Conference coming to Baltimore this year in early March. It's a great way to connect with other educators and meet people like Audrey and Joanne, come to some of their sessions and learn from them. So please feel free to visit our website to learn more about the T-Cubed International Conference. To receive a certificate for tonight, go ahead and click the link in the chat window. Also listed as a link for the documents that were used by Audrey and Joanne. And if you happen to miss those, feel free to just look in your email in a couple days. You'll automatically get a follow-up email with a link to the certificate, a link for the documents, and also a link for the recording. And if you're watching this on demand, go ahead and copy that link into your favorite browser to receive your certificate. Thanks so much, Audrey and Joanne, for everything you shared tonight. It was really great to get a kind of a fresh look again at the interactive classroom and flipping the classroom. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh.
And thanks, everyone, for joining us, and we hope to see you back online real soon. Have a great night.